IDW Sonic Comic Issue 14. Sonic and Silver walk through a snowy mountain with no winter clothes on. Thankfully, Silver is at least holding his chest like he's shivering and has one eye open. And at the very least, Sonic's got his hand in front of his face because of the blizzard. But it doesn't bode well when the very first panel pisses you off. Archie had Sonic with winter clothes just fine. And I'm pretty sure turning Sonic characters into Zombots counts as changing their designs. So don't buy into the bullshit lie that Flynn can't change their designs at this point. If he could roboticize them, he could give them new clothes. Sonic Boom gave Amy new clothes. The games had different costumes in the Sonic Rivals games. This is just insulting to my intelligence. I know Sonic goes to cold places without winter clothes in the games all the time, but it's still a plot hole there. So why make the comics inferior by including it? Usually the implication is that he doesn't have a choice. It's the next destination. He didn't know it'd be cold, and he has to tough it out. Especially in Sonic 3 with Ice Capstone, where he couldn't exactly leave Angel Island for winter clothes and come back, could he? Well, why not? Eggman was perfectly fine with patiently waiting at the end of the levels for Sonic to walk into his boss fight every time. If Sonic took off running away or took Tails' plane to get some winter clothes and came back, Eggman would keep waiting. Especially in Sonic Unleashed, there was no excuse for Sonic not getting some winter clothes before going to Not Alaska. I would have liked to see what his winter clothes would look like for a change. He's more than iconic enough that I could still tell it's him because he'd have blue fur and talk like Sonic. And obviously the same applies to Silver. You could say that the implication is that Sonic has a magical immunity to freezing to death on top of his super speed in some continuities. But it's even more far-fetched when you realize that this has to apply to Silver, Tails, and Knuckles too. Though at least they have fur covering them up as somewhat of an excuse. Foxes can survive in the winter because they have fur. However, Silver and Tails are still cold in snowy places. If they weren't feeling cold, I would be able to assume, or better yet, they could tell me, that they don't get cold as easy because of all their fur. In stories where Sonic simply has winter clothes, I have nothing to say about it other than, good, he's dressed right. So it doesn't derail things. I've never ranted about this for this long, but this is a more recent comic, so it's relevant now, and it's a much worse comic than SCC was. The excuse for this panel that I thought up right away was that their rings are constantly draining down with how cold they are, and they keep collecting invisible rings as they walk around to avoid frostbite. The constant ring draining doesn't happen in the games, but that's because it annoyed people to have a little challenge. The reason I took so long to mention that maybe their rings are protecting them is probably that rings haven't been mentioned in IDW. So I'm not even sure if they're a canon element of their world yet. Even Sadie M had rings. And rings were in front of the cops trying to shoot Chaos Zero, so they are canon to the games. Anyways, Silver says that this is where that guy told him to go. He fortunately lampshades that sketchy that a random guy appears and tells him about a base of Eggman's and then vanishes. I'm guessing that guy is Starline. I mean, it could be some random civilian that stumbled into the base, but meta-logic-wise, it's more likely to be a character we already know. If it was a random guy, he would have had to put up with the robots in the base. It sure is lucky that that guy even met and got into contact with Silver when he wanted to, when I'm sure he'd rather talk to Sonic, the famous hero. Like, call him. How did they meet? I assume Silver just met him face to face. They see some robots clearing out the base of containers and carrying them into a red portal. Red is definitely a unique color for a portal. I expect portals to be green. Chaos Control's flash of light is light green, or maybe even white. But the emeralds are all sorts of colors. Sonic says it seems like they're trying to get rid of evidence as they're whispering the whole time. So what was motivating him and Silver to just stay there hiding? They're just badniks, they die in one hit, so what on earth was motivating them to not just start defeating them? I get watching them for 2 seconds to see what they're doing, but it's immediately self-explanatory. They're not afraid of them, are they? That'd be out of character. Silver could have destroyed them all immediately, so I'm just frustrated at these idiots because they only got interrupted because they wasted so much time talking. Too bad Sonic needed to follow Silver to get here, because he would have been much more successful at fighting the robots on his own with no one to talk to. I say that, but there's a whooshing sound and a blue beam goes past them as they fall over. Who else could it be from but Metal Sonic? I was hoping it'd be a creative, new origin, but of course it's the same guy again. And I wonder if Silver's going to be roboticized in this very issue. Or if the writer is going to think it's too early in the arc for that to happen yet because Metal Logic, that it's not a climax yet. Which would be dumb because Eggman has no reason to wait before using it when he already thought Test 6 was unnecessary. Sonic wastes time saying with a smile that Metal Sonic's fully repaired, and somehow Silver doesn't do anything to him in all of that time. Sonic's not saying anything that matters, and there's nothing to be gained in letting him say that. Why wasn't Silver, at the very least, instinctively compelled to hold Metal Sonic still with his telekinesis? He'd be startled at seeing him and immediately do it. I know it's called psychokinesis, but that sounds stupid. Since when is that term used for telekinesis? So somehow, Metal has the time to grab Silver's foot after all of Sonic's dialogue. Already the writing of this action scene completely fell apart and can't be taken seriously anymore. Even little children will be immediately smart enough to tell you that in a fight between Metal Sonic and a telekinetic like Silver, Silver would immediately win. Who would forget how annoying it was to fight Silver in Sonic 06? He'd grab Metal Sonic directly too. Really, it's all a matter of who attacks first. And Metal's faster, so he'd smack Silver a bunch of times if he saw him first, and only his rings would keep him alive. But it's not like Metal spin dashed straight through any of them. He just harmlessly rushed past them, and for some reason that knocked them over. Maybe he tried to do that to Silver, but it was kept alive because he has rings, so he's too invincible to feel like screaming in pain. If Silver would have rings to start with, he'd be guaranteed to win against Metal Sonic, because after Metal would get the first hits in, Silver would have the time to grab him telekinetically and tear him apart. Or apparently, since he's too merciful to have done that already, he'd at least hold him still. Silver gets spun around in a circle, and I guess he's too panicked to focus on using his magic right now. He throws Silver away. Good thing Silver can catch himself in a fall with his flight. Sonic merely punches Metal Sonic. I guess he thinks his metal's so tough that a spin dash wouldn't go through him immediately, considering he needs 8 hits to kill at least in the games. So why bother spin dashing then? And a punch of Sonic speed with his rings protecting his fists would be pretty painful to him too. But somehow that doesn't send Metal flying away. I guess Sonic was holding back because he likes the robot made in his image that much, that he smiled at seeing him again. I guess he figured a punch would be more accurate. But in real life, punches are extremely likely to miss because they telegraph themselves so obviously. Sonic avoids the attack and wastes time reminding himself that Metal can't talk. It sure is weirdly merciful of Metal Sonic to not attack him and interrupt him while he's saying that worthless dialogue. I guess he was just that curious about what Sonic had to say. At least here he's drawn as dodging his attack. I assume Silver's on his way back the whole time they're fighting. He'd better immediately defeat Metal Sonic after reaching him at the end of the fight. I take the Sonic X formula where the side characters do a lot of fighting, then the strongest character beats the robot one hit over nonsense, because at least that kind of made sense. Sonic says that Metal Sonic not being able to talk is a major downgrade. If the writer knows this, why did he write it this way? He talked in Sonic Pinball Party, as I mentioned before, and even if that game isn't canon, even though Sega wanted you to buy it, he had Metal Sonic talk in the reboot. Why'd he change his mind? Actually, I'm not sure why Sonic thinks this is a downgrade, because why would he want to hear his generic villain dialogue? The only dialogue he'd say anyways. The only point of giving him dialogue is to humanize him by giving him a personality. And a generic bad guy conqueror personality is not a personality, really. Sonic really misses hearing him say that he's better than him? At least with him talking beforehand in the comic, I got to know what his personality is. And now that I know it, I no longer need him to talk, because he's not interesting. But Eggman does need him to talk, because what if one of his robots needs clarification on their orders? Well, those orders are usually really simple anyways. Go here, fight Sonic. That doesn't require clarification, so it makes sense for him to be lazy. Silver comes back, and Metal's surrounded by a light blue light because Silver did go grab him. I guess from Silver trailing off, he'll be attacked anyways because of Starline. And because the issue insists on having every story last the whole issue. Why didn't he tear Metal Sonic apart? So Metal gets warped away by a portal below him when Silver could have easily torn him in half with telekinesis. Sure, you can't do that to robots with Silver and Sonic 06, but that's because 06 sucks, so it was way too rushed out to have had the time to implement you doing that. So you had to throw the robots to kill them instead, which was just as easy and just an extra button press, because it's just a video game. That doesn't prove Silver couldn't do it. He could tear off a part of Master Overlord. Starline greets them, calling them gentlemen, even though they're his enemies, bringing Metal Sonic back. And miraculously, Silver and Sonic have the time to have a discussion about Starline stating the obvious about their history with them, when Metal Sonic could be smacking them in all that time. Not to mention, it's really nice of Starline not to create a portal in their bodies and kill them instantly. He is the genre-savvy villain who wants them dead at all costs, after all. But oh yeah, Eggman probably wants him alive to be roboticized now, so that wouldn't make him happy. If he was actually intelligent, he'd understand this already. I figure he was just assuming they dodged his attempt to summon a portal in their bodies, so he's not even bothering. Predictably, Starline was Silver's informant all along. So why didn't Metal Sonic have the metal virus all over his hand so that he could have these two roboticized with a single touch? That was dumb of Starline not to think of that. That was dumb of Eggman not to think of that, because he would have already roboticized Silver. And I was actually expecting that, because I've heard this comic doesn't give a shit about main character plot armor for this. Sure, Eggman's still working on the metal virus right now, but he confirmed that it works. He didn't care about having a test 6, so that wouldn't stop him from using it. Oh, after Sonic says he's got a bunch of questions for him to answer, Starline actually bothers to tell him that he's the one behind his present concerns. He sure is affably evil for someone who loves the metal virus. Maybe he's just so much of an admirer of Eggman that he convinced himself that him making everyone his robot slaves would be for the good of mankind. Like, because the evils of free will wouldn't exist because people wouldn't be committing crimes anymore. What makes him think Eggman would never roboticize him, even if he would be the last to go? He says he wanted to meet Sonic for himself, and he talks too much. Silver fortunately explains that Starline did not talk this creepy when he first met him. Starline gives Sonic the bad news, and we see Eggman complaining again that the metal virus's progression is too slow. Improve it, idiot. You can make a better version, like one without the side effects, and that could be used so much that it'd be the dominant one. Why doesn't it just reprogram it manually? Eggman complains that it won't spread far at this rate. What makes him think that? I've been under the assumption that once it's on you, you're doomed, even if you get it off you. If it was that easy, it'd be harmless. I'm thinking that because if you get radioactive chemicals on you, you're not gonna not get radioactive poisoning later just because you washed it off you. He'd just need his robots to get on a bunch of people. Who cares how long it would take? I've always assumed the virus was made of nanobots because it's great goo, which is associated with nanobots, and we saw the metal virus on a screen and it looked nothing like that. Meaning that's an extreme close-up of a tiny robot. So if it's made of robots with programming, all you'd have to do to alter the metal virus is add more programming that could reprogram it. Like how all you have to do to alter a game is use an action replay to change its programming. A person could fight fire with fire by sending more nanobots to the nanobots, like how Rotor defeated the nanobots infecting Jeffrey with his own. Eggman wants to soak the whole planet in his metal virus and wonders if repeated exposure would make things faster. I guess he's hoping this instead of just immediately going to reprogram the virus, because he doesn't want to go through the work of reprogramming the metal virus. It'd be much easier to just do repeated exposure if that's a solution. I mean, he covered the rabbit in it completely, and that made the process instant. I will compliment the fact that it looks like it makes more sense that someone's turned into a robot after being covered in metal liquid. I never understood how being exposed to beams of light turned people into robots in Sadie M and stuff. And I had to assume their light had special gas in it. But the portable roboticizers weren't like that. The goo actually looks like metal, which would stick onto them. And as actual physical matter, I could believe it would cause a chemical reaction to change the thing it's standing on better. Beams of light are radiation, and all radiation can do is cause radiation poisoning. We see Eggman lower the robot rabbit into the animal's cage with a fishing line, while saying the word boop a lot to try to add dark comedy to it, which tries to make it seem in character for Eggman. When you look back on how I tried to blow up Station Square with a missile and threatened Tails in SC1, it's not so far-fetched to see him try and make a metal virus as well. That's not as bad as outright trying to kill people with a missile. I love that the rabbit only looks like a robot in the sense that its eyes are different, like in the first issue of Archsonic. The coloration is still the same as your organic rabbit, instead of all Robians having the same drab color. Like, they understand that you know that it's made of metal, and they don't have to change the color because of it. This is a common sense improvement, even if Archie did this first. There's no reason for Eggman to make them look different as robots to the fullest extent, because that's extra effort. It's less effort to be lazy, and maybe the virus can figure out what color surface it's on, and make the resulting metal the same color. The animal's roboticized, and Eggman says that the greater the exposure, the more rapid the effect. So all he has to do is put the virus in a few locations. Just as he's excited, Ruff and Tumble go into the room and say they're tired of waiting, and Eggman's unhappy that they're still here. Why doesn't he roboticize them? I hope he will, that'd be logical writing. This would be foreshadowing to him doing that. If he doesn't want them to still be here, he can just roboticize them and send them away. They want more weapons, saying that their old weapons weren't good enough, and Eggman tells them that they're lucky because his latest weapon just got out of beta. The metal virus isn't a weapon, it's a transmogrifier. So they're gonna get infected, right? Good. I assume it'll be permanent, and I hope they never get turned back. Meanwhile, as Sonic runs around, Starline says it's difficult for him to get traction in the deep snow and build up his speed. Metal attacks him because he can just fly over that, and Silver wastes time telling Sonic to move and saying he'll get him instead of just getting him already. What's the harm in holding both still? He's such an idiot just for the sake of not making the fight scene end immediately. What's wrong with ending the fight quicker? I'm sick of this with him. Metal Sonic kicks Sonic into Silver, and Sonic fortunately tries to explain that Metal's too fast for Silver to focus on. When Metal stands on the snow, he's thrown away by Silver. So much for too fast. You'd think Metal would just keep going fast after Sonic explained that. Starline's mad at him, as I wonder if he really is a duck and not a platypus. It was confusing because the beak of a platypus is black, but a duck is white. At least he has a thing on the front of his head and glasses to avoid just looking like Donald Duck with a fancy suit. Is that suit winter clothes appropriate? Can a duck really survive in a snowy mountain? I assume Sonic was running towards him slower so he'd have the time to say all those words in response to him, or he didn't start running till the end. And that was stupid because he gave Starline the time to react by sending them through a portal. Using portals against the heroes is something Finitibus did with the warp rings, so he's not really creative. So he warps Sonic so that he ends up jumping off a cliff, and Silver thankfully goes after him. Metal gets summoned back, and Sonic says they're on the opposite side of the mountain. Sonic tells Silver to grab on and runs over there, and Starline thanks Metal Sonic for keeping the Badnik caravan safe and tells him to go first. He's nice to him. Sonic spin dashes into Starline, and Starline sheds some tears in the process, but of course he doesn't spin dash through him when he could have easily killed him right here. Would that have saved the hero some trouble? Thankfully, it's explained that he thinks he needs him alive because he's impatient to get details on how Eggman was returned to normal. It's satisfying that Starline's afraid of him. See, why couldn't Ruff and Tumble be like this? That makes sense. Starline says an access code, confusing me because he's helping Silver. He's asked where Eggman is, and tells Sonic that he's planning on planting explosives inside a vault and then giving Silver a detonation code. But wouldn't Eggman want Silver alive so he could roboticize him and then effortlessly win? Or at least see his enemies beaten? Is he just lying to Sonic to trick him into running away from him so he can escape? Sonic throws Starline away from him and wants to go after Silver. Again, he thinks he needs Starline alive to learn how Eggman got back to normal. Presumably so Tails could develop an antidote. There's an explosion, and then Eggman reaches through the portal and grabs Starline, as I'm not fooled at all, and smacks Starline to the glass, saying that Sonic is his to destroy. Eggman says that he could carpet bomb Sonic any day, but that's not enough. He has to beat him to prove he's stronger. It is mandatory to explain this, and it has to be in character for Eggman, because he could have easily had Sonic killed in his sleep a long time ago in the games. He says there's a right way and a wrong way to vanquish your lifelong nemesis, and Starline did it wrong. No, he did it the smart and intelligent way, not the emotions are the only thing I care about way. They always clashed with each other because Starline was like the genre-savvy Snively, and Eggman was constantly confusing him. Eggman should at least clarify to him what exactly he's not allowed to do to beat Sonic. Because if he's never allowed to kill Sonic, I have to wonder why he let him use Metal Sonic against Sonic. Like, he assumed that Metal Sonic would lose? So, is this leading up to him roboticizing Starline? Having the ironic punishment where the guy who helped the Metal Virus happen will get the Metal Virus? Because that's what the writing is naturally leading to, because he wants to punish him angrily. Either that or he wants to just beat him up, and then keep using him, like Fleetware Botnick did when he strangled Grimer. He throws him to the floor and tells him he should be sorry and says to not let it happen again, as he wasn't remotely surprised that Sonic survived the explosion. It makes sense that Silver used his telekinesis as a shield to protect the two of them from the blast. And Eggman was actually smart enough to predict that Sonic is too tenacious to be killed easily. Eggman asked him what was all that he unloaded anyways, because he hasn't used that base in years and everything in there was obsolete junk. Starline says it's not junk to him, it's treasured collectibles of his legacy. Again, he would have worked a little better as a human fangirl. Instead, he always came off as a Smithers to him. He stayed awake for days looking for him and made himself ill. You only do that for someone you love. I don't know if it's canon though. Because there's being a huge fan of a celebrity, and then there's sacrificing your health in the process. He says that the experience put things in a new perspective. It should tell him that Eggman's an idiot who will never win because he refuses to let him be smart and refuses to let himself be smart. And if he did get him his victory, he wouldn't even appreciate it. It's pretty depressing to see Silver in a bed shaped like a hospital bed after he, for some reason, passed out while Sonic didn't. Amy thanks him in a Restoration HQ, and Amy and Sonic bore me to death with redundant dialogue. Sonic has no idea where to look for Eggman because he could be in any of his many bases across the world. His many bases across the world. Many bases? No wonder the military didn't find his base and carpet bomb him at midnight to kill him. They probably did, and the bases never contained him, and they realized it was just a waste of bombs. That makes a lot more sense than the cartoons. Amy says that instead of wasting time looking for where Eggman is, they'll go where they know he isn't. They'll tap into his network from one of his old, unguarded bases. Now she seems to be making a smart plan. Sonic says they should go now, even though she has work to do here, and she agrees because it's him. And the story ends with them running away, carrying her. I'm glad the ending bubble was too vague to be an actual spoiler this time. This issue was by Ian Flynn. It was about Silver and Sonic facing off with Metal Sonic and Starline. And the story consistently struggles at trying to justify Silver not immediately destroying Metal Sonic. It would have been plausible if Sonic didn't have the time to say all that dialogue after seeing Metal Sonic. He had tons of time to tear him apart then. Metal Sonic could have grabbed him and thrown him away, and then the whole fight could have been without Silver until the very end. That'd make more sense. The minute Silver was able to grab him telekinetically, the logic fell apart when he didn't proceed to tear him in half while he was at it. So whatever. I hated how much of an idiot he was because of that. So most of the story felt like a pointless waste of time, which only served to inspire Amy to go to one of Eggman's bases with Sonic. Eggman showed how he's a prideful idiot, while Starline's a smart threat. Makes me wish it was just Starline.